All right, everybody, get ready, because today we are diving deep into some shady stuff. The IRS's dirty dozen list of tax scams for 2025.
Yes, you know that yearly warning they give us about scams?
A heads up so we don't get taken in.
Exactly. You can think of it as the IRS's greatest hits of scams, those tricks fraudsters use to try and get unsuspecting taxpayers.
Yeah. And the thing is, these scams aren't just for tax season.
No, they can come after you any time of year hoping to catch you off guard.
Right. So we're going to dive in right now and give you the knowledge you need to stay safe, starting with a classic email phishing scams.
Yeah, we've all seen those in our inboxes.
Right, lurking in there.
Absolutely, and they're getting trickier all the time. Fake emails and texts that look like they're from the IRS.
Oh, yeah.
Promising you big refunds or threatening you with legal action if you don't do what they say.
I've always wondered about this. What's the best way to deal with an email like that?
Well, the best defense is a good offense.
No.
Don't engage with them at all.
Oh, okay.
Forward the email to phishing@irs.gov and then delete it. And never, ever click on any links in the email.
In point.
You know, a lot of people don't realize that just hovering over a link shows you the actual URL.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if it looks fishy, don't click.
That's a good tip. So it's not just about watching out for emails, but knowing how to really look at them before you do anything.
Right. And that brings us to another place where you see a lot of tax misinformation, bad social media advice. You know, those viral TikToks saying you can write off your cat as a business expense?
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that.
Like that whole thing I saw going around about misusing Form W-2 Wild.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
It just shows you have to be super careful about tax stuff you see on social media.
Yeah.
Anyone can post anything online, even if it's not true or accurate or even legal.
So any tips on how to handle tax advice on social media?
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Okay.
The IRS website and real tax professionals are your best bet.
Good to know. Okay, let's move on to IRS individual online account help from scammers.
Right, this one targets people who want things to be easy.
Yeah.
Scammers offer to help you set up your IRS online account, but really, they're just trying to steal your info.
But it's pretty straightforward to set up an account on irs.gov, right?
Absolutely, you can do it yourself in just a few clicks. No need to get anyone else involved.
Okay, so let's talk about a scam that tends to pop up after natural disasters. Fake charities.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but these scammers take advantage of people's generosity,
Oh,
setting up fake charities to take donations meant for disaster relief.
awful.
Yeah.
So how can we make sure we're giving to real charities?
The IRS website has a tool to check if a charity is legit. It's always best to double check before you donate.
Good to know. Next up is a credit that's been getting a lot of attention lately, but not for good reasons. False fuel tax credit claims.
Yeah, this credit is meant for specific businesses and farms, but people on social media are promoting it like it's some kind of universal tax break.
Gotcha. And that's not true at all.
It's absolutely not.
So who's actually eligible for this credit? Because I think a lot of people are confused.
Sure. The fuel tax credit is for fuel used in off-highway vehicles for things like farming, construction, some industrial activities.
Okay.
It's not for driving to work or going on a road trip.
Right. So unless I'm driving a tractor, I probably don't qualify.
Exactly. And that actually leads into another scam that's going around, credits for sick leave and family leave. This credit was really helpful for self-employed people during the pandemic, but it was only available for 2020 and 2021.
I see. But some folks are still trying to claim it, right? Using Form 7202 incorrectly.
Sadly, yes. And that confusion is actually leading to another scam, the bogus self-employment tax credit.
Okay.
It's totally made up, likely a misunderstanding of those expired sick leave credits.
So just to be clear, there's no self-employment tax credit.
Right, don't fall for it. And while we're talking about things that don't exist, let's debunk another myth. Improper household employment taxes.
What's that one all about?
This scam involves people making up fake household employees
Why?
to try and claim tax credits based on wages they never paid. It's like imaginary friends, but with real consequences.
Seriously. You know, it's amazing how creative these scammers are. It really highlights the need to stay informed and not believe schemes that sound too good to be true.
Absolutely. Speaking of creative schemes, let's talk about the overstated withholding scam.
Okay, fill me in. How does this one work?
This scam encourages people to inflate their refunds by making up income and withholding amounts on their tax forms. We're talking W-2s, 1099s, even the Alaskan Dividend Fund.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
They're really going all out.
Yeah, and it's not just about claiming more withholdings than you actually had. It's about creating a whole fake financial story.
That's bold, but not in a good way. So what's the catch?
The IRS has systems to check the info on your return. If they find inconsistencies or can't verify your claims, they'll hold your refund for investigation and you could face penalties.
Yikes. So the takeaway is be honest with your taxes. Use real information and documents when you file.
Exactly. And speaking of being honest and transparent, let's move on to a scam that takes advantage of a legitimate IRS program. Misleading offers in compromise.
Now, I know offers in compromise, or OICs, can help people who can't afford to pay their full tax debt, right?
Yes, that's right. But unfortunately, there are shady operators out there, mills, as they're called,
Okay.
who prey on people who are struggling, promising to get them an OIC for a big fee.
That's awful to take advantage of people like that.
Yep.
What are some signs that someone might be dealing with one of these mills?
High-pressure sales tactics, crazy fees, and guarantees of success are all red flags.
Okay,
Remember, you can check your OIC eligibility for free on the IRS website.
good reminder.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about choosing the right tax preparer, which leads us to ghost tax return preparers.
Right. These are preparers who operate in the shadows. They don't sign returns or give you their IRS preparer tax identification number or PTIN.
What?
They're basically trying to avoid responsibility for the returns they prepare.
That sounds shady.
Mm.
That's the danger of working with someone like that.
The risk is they might not be qualified or ethical, and if there are problems with your return, you're the one who's stuck dealing with it.
Oh no, definitely want to avoid that.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to make sure I'm working with a legit tax preparer?
Always ask for their PTIN, check their credentials, and ask for references. And remember, never sign a blank or incomplete tax return. You're responsible for the info on it, even if someone else prepared it.
Okay, good advice. Now for our last stop on this tour of tax scams, we have new client scams and spear phishing. This one's especially sneaky because it goes after tax professionals.
Yeah, it shows that scammers don't discriminate. They'll target anyone they think they can take advantage of, even the experts.
So how does this scam actually work?
It often starts with a seemingly harmless email from a potential client.
Oh, okay.
This email might be very personalized, using information from social media or other sources to make it look real.
Tricky.
Yeah, that's spear phishing, using specific details to make the scam more convincing.
And I bet the goal is to get the tax professional to open a bad attachment or click a bad link.
You got it. Once that happens, the scammer can get access to sensitive client data, which could lead to identity theft and fake tax filings.
Ugh. So it's not just about taxpayers being careful, but tax professionals too. Everyone needs to be on the lookout for suspicious emails and requests, especially those with attachments or links.
Absolutely. And it's always a good idea to double-check the sender's identity before you open anything.
Right. It's like that saying, trust but verify. It's more than just a saying. It's essential for cybersecurity.
I agree.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground in this first part of our dives into the IRS's dirty dozen. We've explored email phishing scams, bad social media advice, and fake charities.
Yeah, and bogus credit schemes.
But we're not done yet.
No, there's still more to uncover, so stay with us as we continue exploring these scams and give you the knowledge and tools you need to stay safe.
Exactly. Join us for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into these scams, discuss how to report them, and explore the psychology behind why people fall for them.
We'll also share tips and tricks to stay ahead of the game and protect your money from these fraudsters. Until then, stay vigilant and stay informed.
See you in part 2.
See ya.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the IRS's dirty dozen list of tax scams for 2025.
Back for more.
We're back. In part 1, we talk about some pretty tricky scams.
Yeah, we did.
But the thing is, these scammers are always coming up with new ways to try and get us.
It's true, it's a constant cat and mouse game, but the good news is
Okay.
the IRS is working to stay ahead of them, and so are we.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say you've been really careful.
Mm-hmm.
Checking your emails, verifying info on social media, being a savvy taxpayer.
Right.
But you still think you might have fallen victim to one of these scams.
Oh, no.
What should you do?
Well, first of all, take a deep breath.
Okay, breathe.
And don't panic.
Don't panic.
There are a few things you can do depending on what happened.
Okay, so let's break it down. What if you think you were targeted by a phishing scam, but you didn't give them any personal info?
In that case, forward the suspicious email to phishing@irs.gov.
Okay.
That helps the IRS keep track of these scams and maybe shut them down.
Okay, good.
You can also report it to the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, or TGTA,
TGTA.
at 1-800-366-4484.
Got it. So even if you think you've avoided the worst, it's important to document everything.
Exactly. But what if you actually fell victim to a scam and your personal information is out there?
Ooh, scary stuff.
That's when you need to act fast. Contact the IRS Identity Protection Specialized Unit
Okay,
at 1-800-908-4490.
got it.
You can also file a report with the Federal Trade Commission at identitytheft.gov and think about putting a fraud alert on your credit reports.
It sounds like there are a lot of resources out there to help people who've been scammed.
Hmm.
But what about prevention?
Right.
How can we protect ourselves before we even encounter these schemes?
That's a great question, and it comes down to being proactive and informed. Knowledge is power. And the more you know about these scams, the better you'll be at avoiding them.
Okay, so proactive strategies. We've talked about being cautious with emails and social media, but what about choosing a tax preparer? Any red flags to look out for?
One big red flag is a preparer who won't sign your tax return
Oh, really?
or give you their IRS Preparer Tax Identification Number, their PTIN.
Okay.
These ghost preparers are basically trying to avoid responsibility.
So they don't want to be held accountable for their work.
Exactly.
It makes sense to insist on a preparer who will stand behind what they do.
Absolutely. But sometimes these scams can be really convincing.
Yeah, they can.
I'm curious, what are some of the psychological tactics that scammers use to trick people?
That's a good question. They seem to be experts at persuasion. How do they manipulate people?
Well, scammers are really good at pushing our buttons. They use our emotions and biases against us.
Oh, interesting.
For example, they might use urgency and fear to make us decide quickly without thinking.
Like those emails saying you owe taxes and have to pay right now or you'll get in trouble.
Exactly. They create a sense of panic, and that makes you more likely to fall for their trap.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Another tactic could be appealing to our greed or desire for easy money.
Right, like those too good to be true schemes that promise huge refunds or secret tax loopholes. They play on our desire to get rich quick, which makes us less likely to question if it's legit.
It's like a magic trick, distracting us with shiny promises while they're stealing from us. But what about scams targeting tax professionals?
Right.
How do they trick people who are supposed to be experts?
Well, remember, even experts are human, and they can fall for the same tricks.
That's true.
Especially spear phishing. It uses personalized information to build trust and make the scam seem real.
So it's not enough to just know the tax laws.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of these psychological traps and use critical thinking to spot them.
You got it. And that's where education and awareness come in. By understanding how scammers operate, we can be more careful and less likely to fall for their tricks.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about what to do if you think you've been scammed and how to protect yourself. But what if you see something suspicious,
Yeah.
like a shady tax preparer or an investment that sounds too good to be true? Can you report that to the IRS?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
The IRS wants people to report suspected tax scams or shady preparers. You can use Form 14242 online
Okay,
or mail or fax it to the IRS Lead Development Center.
good to know. Sometimes I think, well, this doesn't affect me, so why bother? But reporting these things can help others from getting scammed.
I agree. It's a team effort. By speaking up, we can help create a safer and more honest tax system.
It's fascinating how these scams have changed. They've gone from those old Nigerian prince emails to these complex schemes using technology and psychology.
It's true, and that's why we need to keep learning and adapting our defenses. The IRS is always updating its resources and guidance, and it's important for taxpayers to do the same.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, remember that being vigilant is crucial. Be skeptical, question everything, and don't be afraid to ask for help or clarification.
Good advice.
And what else?
Use the resources that are available to you. The IRS website has tons of information.
Right.
And there are many organizations dedicated to consumer protection and financial literacy.
Awesome. Any other final thoughts? And lastly, remember that you're not alone in this. By working together, sharing information, and reporting suspicious activity, we can make it harder for these scammers to succeed.
Well said. That's a great note to end on. Now stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive,
Yes, part 3.
where we'll explore the bigger picture of tax scams, analyze some trends we're seeing, and leave you with some thought-provoking questions to ponder.
Questions to ponder.
As you continue on your path to financial well-being, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the IRS's Dirty Dozen list of tax scams for 2025.
The grand finale.
We've uncovered a lot, from the ins and outs of specific scams to those psychological tricks fraudsters use.
Right.
But now I kind of want to step back and look at the big picture.
I like that approach. It's easy to get lost in the details, But if you understand the big trends, you can be ready for future threats.
So, looking at this year's Dirty Dozen, anything stand out to you?
Well, one thing that's really clear is how much social media is driving these scams. It's become a hub for misinformation, all these bad tax tips spreading like wildfire.
Yeah, it's like a two-sided coin. Social media can be good for connecting with people
Sure.
and sharing useful info, but it can also be used to spread lies and manipulate people.
Absolutely. And that's where critical thinking comes in. We have to be careful about what we see online and check it with reliable sources. Don't just believe someone because they have lots of followers or found confident.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And it applies to more than just taxes. We need to be critical thinkers in all parts of our lives, especially with so much information out there.
I agree completely. And it's not just about checking facts, it's also about recognizing the emotional triggers scammers use. They play on our feels, our greed, our desire for quick solutions.
Like they're playing chess with us, anticipating our every move and setting traps.
Exactly. And that's why it's crucial to understand the psychology behind these scams. Once you know the game, you can see through the tricks.
So it's not just about knowing tax rules, but knowing how scammers operate.
Right. And the rules of the game are always changing, which is why we need to stay informed and adapt. The IRS is doing its part, updating their resources and guidance, but ultimately we have to take charge of our own financial well-being.
And part of that is knowing that anyone can be tricked by these scams, no matter how old you are, how much education you have, or how good you are with money.
True, no one is immune. The key is to be aware, be proactive, and ask for help when you need it. There's no shame in getting guidance, especially with something as complicated as taxes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one message you want our listeners to take away?
The one thing I want everyone to remember is this: knowledge is power. Taking steps to protect yourself is the best defense against these scams. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe. The IRS is on your side, and there are many resources available to help you navigate the world of taxes and stay ahead of the scammers.
That's a perfect way to end this deep dive. I hope our listeners feel empowered to face whatever comes their way, whether it's a suspicious email, a questionable social media post, or an investment that sounds too good to be true.
I hope so too.
Remember, you have the tools and the knowledge to protect yourself. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe.
Absolutely. It's been great diving deep with you and sharing these insights. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the IRS's Dirty Dozen tax scams. We'll be back with more deep dives on topics that matter to you. Until then, stay safe.